We just had a meeting, so here we go.
Okay. Well, it's good to see you.
You too. You too. How you been? You been good?
I've been good.
It's a crazy
Yeah.
time, isn't it? Crazy time to be alive.
Yeah, but at least we're alive.
And we are not as affected as many people.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Oh, we've got some more people. I'll let you greet them all.
Yeah. There's my partner in crime.
What? Afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very well.
Good.
Very well. I was like, oh no, I didn't register. I was like, whoops, where'd it go? Where'd it go?
I've been there more than once.
I mean, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I try to be so careful, but sometimes I outfile myself with all this stuff. But which folder did it go into, and where can I find it now?
Right.
And Google's the worst. At work, they use Google everything. Ugh.
Do you know how many we have registered, Thomas?
I don't.
So we've got 17 registered for today. So Thomas, I would just give it a couple minutes past 3 before you kick things off, so we can
Yeah.
everybody kind of jump on.
Absolutely. 17's a good number.
Yeah.
These have had really good participation, which is good.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
And Lindsay, you're going to record as well.
Yes. This one will be recorded as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything and everything for social media at this point, right?
I get it.
Hi, we are muted on the phone. Go to airplane mode.
Yeah. You know, Holly, the only negative to recording it is when I play myself back, I think, oh, gee, I wish I had said it this way instead.
Oh, you can't do that. Dale Carnegie always said we had three presentations: the one we rehearsed, the one that we want to give, and the one that we actually present.
Yeah, there you go.
So, like, yes, Mr. Carnegie, you are brilliant, a brilliant mind. Airplane.
That is a really pretty picture of Kelly that she has on her screen.
You know, I've thought I should try to do something like that, right? Something that makes me look a little more professional. I thought, well, I'll go to Glamour Shots, but I guess they're not around anymore. So.
And there's still such a thing as Glamour Shots?
Yeah.
Now it's called iPhone. iPhone and ring lights. That's what it is.
Right? iPhone and ring lights. Anybody have plans for Father's Day?
I can't go see my dad. He's in the long-term care nursing facility. They can't have visitors as of yet. So
yeah, they're kind of locked down. Like, I have a friend that works in I guess it's an assisted living, but they built up like barriers. It's off of it's on its way in between, like in Batavia, on its way to Geneva. I don't remember the name of it, but incredibly high end. And they used to have like 4 different entry points, and they blocked everything off to where now there's one entrance for vendors and people that want to try to get in. And as a staff, they all agreed when the pandemic started that no one was going to go out to restaurants. They were going to all have their groceries, because they were like, our residents are key. We were going to keep our residents safe. And they've not had one outbreak. Not one.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I know him from the gym, and we all have a face group page, and he's like, I miss the gym. I miss everybody, but he can't, he's like, I can't go. I can't do it. I'm like, that's
yeah, anybody at this point that would do that and create an illness would really feel bad if they did now.
Right. So. Right. So we miss Ray at the gym, but yeah, I mean, pretty cool that they've not had one outbreak, not one. So it's pretty awesome.
That's a blessing.
Yeah. Asu! You're so darling. Bill Chi was joining us.
Mhm.
Yay. I know Bill.
Oh, I love that background.
So do I.
Oh,
How
I
are you?
know.
That's where I want to be.
That's where I want to be too. It's my motivation. Hi, Holly. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Bill. How are you?
Long time no see.
Long time no see. This is a new background today. I'm loving it. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
My virtual backgrounds are like my cell phone covers. You got to rotate it out.
I think that's fantastic. We
The
actually-
water's not moving though.
That's true, but that's why it's fake.
You know, with all this technology, someone's going to create a moving backdrop.
There is
Somebody's gonna
one.
create it.
Yeah,
Is
there
there
are
really?
some that are moving.
There is one, and if you
Zo-
want,
Zoom has a couple of them like that,
they
where
do.
the trees are swaying in the background, and yeah.
They do. However, while that's certainly available, sometimes the rest of the scene is not what I like it to be. That's why I kind of picked this one.
Mhm.
Nice.
How's everybody doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Tish, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Uh-oh.
We've got
I mean-
3 of 3. Thomas, if you want to roll it.
Yeah, I think we're at that point. So welcome everybody. Glad to have you all here with us this afternoon for what I think is going to be an interesting hour that we're going to talk about inspiring confidence in times of change. And if ever we were in times of change, this would be it. So again, thank you. I expect we'll have a few more folks joining us as we go forward. I want to make a couple of comments before we actually jump into the session for the day. And that first one is, you have no idea how much how nice it is to see your faces when we're speaking to you. All right. And so those of you that are brave enough, I haven't had a haircut in months, but I'm still willing to get on the screen. So if some of you would be so kind as to go ahead and show us your smiling face so that when Holly and Tish are talking, they actually know who is out there. That would be just wonderful. So from there, though, I want to say that we're continuing the Speakers Bureau activity through the summer now. We have a few more sessions set up here in June, June 22nd, on web accountability and customer conversion, and the art of being fearless and confident on June 30th. So you can register for those at the Chamber's website. Go to programs and events and find us in the dropdown and go ahead and register. We're going to continue these programs throughout the summer, and we'll be adding more speakers and more events as we go along. But today, we want to start with Tish, and then we're going to roll over to Holly. So by now, they probably just don't need an introduction because we all know who each other is. But Tish, why don't you go ahead and kick us off and then roll it over to Holly.
All righty, sounds like a plan. So I am going to share. Oh, can you give me rights to share?
Yeah, that would be,
Should be good now.
thank you, Lindsay.
Sorry.
There we go.
It looks to me like Tish is frozen for just a moment. I think she's in the process of doing her share, so bear with us. And thanks to the brave folks who did click on showing your face. That's great.
Hi, guys.
It looks like
Right.
she's going to log back in, apparently. So, be nice to her when she comes back, because this is one of those stress moments when we're all going, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." So be nice.
Should we
When
turn
she-
our backs and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
clear our mouth? Like, what?
That would be so mean. I tell
Oh,
you.
she's not texting me, so I haven't heard anything.
No, but this is one of those duck across the pond things. She's paddling like crazy on below the surface. You can bet on that.
Yeah, the internet, it can cause some stress sometimes.
It has done that for a few people. So while we're waiting for her, maybe we can just say hello to each other quickly. Just, who you are and who you're with, or something quick about what you do. No more than 5 seconds. So Colonel Don?
I can't even say my name in 5 seconds, Tom, but I'm Colonel Don Potajny.
Okay. William Chu?
Hello, good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill Chu.
Okay. Urmila?
Hi everyone, I'm Urmila from OM Science.
Thank you. Vasavi?
Vasavi Chaka from Arala Inc. Leadership Coach. Thank you.
I tried so hard to get that right.
No problem.
Marsha iPad. You got to go off mute.
Hi, Marcia Straub.
Okay. Lindsay, you want to say hi?
Sure. Lindsay Ewing, Director of Events and Programs for the Naperville Chamber.
Okay. Elliot.
Elliot Hershik.
Oh my, now he's. All right, well, we'll keep moving along. Nancy.
Nancy Fallon Hool, a business lawyer in Downers Grove. I'm a Chamber 630 person.
Excellent. Welcome back, Tish. You ready to roll?
Yeah, I don't know what the heck happened. It just kicked me out.
No, we've been telling jokes while you were gone.
Oh, that's good.
Go right ahead.
Okay. You guys were doing introductions. Did everyone get to go through?
A few folks haven't said hi yet, but that's okay.
Okay. All right, let's try this again and hopefully I don't get kicked out.
Here we go. I see it.
Okay, you guys are seeing me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the topic that I want to talk about today is something that is near and dear to my heart, and it's all about change. And I think when we talk about change, the challenge that most of us experience is, especially if we're leaders of people, how do we get people to buy into change? That is probably the biggest challenge that I coach leaders around all the time. And so today, we're going to talk about two elements of change. The first element we're going to talk about related to change is those emotional responses to change. What are they? What do they look like? And then how do you begin to address them so that it doesn't hijack your change effort? The second thing that I want to talk about is a couple of different change models. And what happens is the change models is also what helps to equip you as leaders or facilitators of change to minimize the emotional responses to change or the resistance to change. So I like this quote, change is great, you go first. And so many people say, yeah, change is awesome until they're required to make the change themselves. So from a level setting perspective, I want us to take a minute to define what is change. The dictionary defines it as the act or instance of making or becoming different. So that's how we define it. I like that definition because it's not some philosophical textbook explanation, but it truly is a very basic explanation of how we define change, the act or instance of making or becoming different. And so when we think about the metamorphosis of a butterfly, it's a beautiful thing, but it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight, it's a process. And when we think about change for us individually, there are times where we have to put in a lot of work related to change. And so if I had those ab muscles, I would be ecstatic. But the question becomes, do we want to put in the work in order to achieve what it is that we want to achieve, in order to achieve that change or becoming different, as according to our definition that we saw just a moment ago? So to achieve these kind of results, it takes a commitment, a made up mind. It takes work. You have to change your eating habits. And because we are creatures of habit, it's hard for us to break that cycle. But if we want to become different, it's important that we begin to do things differently, whether that is from a personal perspective or how we run our business. If we want to experience something different, then we have to become different. So I have a question for you guys, and I'd love to see what you guys think about this in the chat. And I may not be able to see the chat, Thomas, so if you could see some of the responses and call them out, that would be great. So the question I have for us is, how do you experience others in times of change? Not how you see change or how you experience change, but how do you experience others in times of change? So if you could just quickly put some thoughts in the drop-down box. The reason why I changed the anatomy of this question a bit is because when we think about change for ourselves, say, oh, I'm great with change. Change is good. There are some people who are honest to say, I absolutely hate change. But what are some feedback that you guys have about how you experience others? Are they excited? Are they stressed out? Do they resist it at all costs? Do people seek it? How do you experience people related to that?
So they're rolling in, stressful.
Yeah.
Others feel stress or fear, inflexible, and I've got one damn it here. Excited, could be exciting.
Yeah. And part of the reason why is that because change is that unknown, right? It's that unknown, and it's taking us outside of what we've been so accustomed to. And when we think about change at the organizational level, when we're requiring our staff members to change, we have to keep in mind that their success has been associated with the current state for so long. And so now we're asking them to do something different, something unknown. And so now they have to almost like start over. And so it feels like they're resisting change, but it's not necessarily they're resisting change. It's just difficult for them to see themselves in this new change. And so as leaders, whether it's leaders in our household or leaders in our businesses, how can we begin to help people see themselves successful in this new change? And so I want to talk about the different elements of change. Now, if you do research, you're going to see tons of thoughts, ideas, perspectives about change, but I wanted to keep it really user-friendly and basic and simple for our conversation. So the elements of change I want to talk about are the personal needs that people have. What are the practical needs of change, which is actually getting the change done? And what are the types of change? Now, I did not put types of change because, again, if you go out and do research, there's a plethora of ideas around the different types of change. It could be transformational change. It could be transactional change, personal change, systemic change. There are so many different types of change. And I think at the end of the day, what we recognize is that someone has to change, an organization has to change in order to become different. It doesn't matter what type of change it is. The bottom line is we all have to do something different in order to experience the different that we want to see. So the first one is personal needs. How many of you guys have heard of the term WIIFM?
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah. So it's the radio station called What's in It for Me. And so you will have a lot of staff that when you're introducing a change to them, the first thing they think about is self. How is this change going to impact me? So we're going to spend some time kind of peeling back what you can do in order to help them expedite through that WIFM station much quicker. The other thing that we're going to talk about are some change models that you can use in order to get the change done. Because that's the two pieces of change. It's how can I make sure my people's personal needs are met, the WIFM, and how can I get my change done? So those are the two things that we're going to talk about today. So from a personal needs perspective, I want to share with you Kubler-Ross's change curve. And I'm sure many of you have seen this. And there's many different change curves out there, but I love how Kubler-Ross defines it from a business perspective. Of course, she talks about loss in general terms of loss of life, but then there's this model that's created for change and emotional responses in organizations. So as you can see here, this curve, tell me which mouse you see, Thomas. Do you see this one moving?
Yes.
Or this one moving?
No.
This one? Okay. I have double screens. So like, which one are you guys seeing? All right. And so what happens is when there's a change that happens, it's not a matter of skipping. We all go through this, but sometimes we go through it quicker than other people do. And so the first thing that we see is surprise, whether it's a good surprise or not so good surprise. There's a sense of shock, like, oh, something's different. Something is different is going to happen in my life, in my work life, in my professional life. And then as we go over the curve, then we start to experience denial and say, this can't be happening. This is the 10th change I've experienced now in this organization, and I'm about tired of it. And so we go into this denial phase. And we're looking for evidence that this thing is going to stick or not stick. In this phase, people are making up their mind of, okay, my organization isn't typically good at navigating change. I'm going to sit this one out and just see how long I can just sit back before they make me adapt to the change. Or adapt to the change. So there's the denial. And then we kind of transition into frustration, recognizing that things are becoming different and this bus is going with me or without me. So I need to make a decision. And then this little lower part, we start to experience different moods. Our energy might sway a bit because now we have to learn new ways of doing things. We have to figure out what our new resources are. We have to figure out who our new colleagues are, in terms of getting the work done. Then we start to come up a bit and say, okay, you know what? This ain't going nowhere. So you start to engage with it a little bit. You start to experiment with the change a little bit just to see how it fits you. And then you start to make a decision about how this work is fitting for you, and you start to have feelings of positivity. You might see some quick wins. So you've tested out your resources, you've tested out your new stakeholder group, and things are starting to improve. So you're making a decision that, okay, I can do this, and then you go to full integration. Now, the goal of this is to get people through this curve as quickly as possible. And there are times where people get stuck at one phase or the other. And so it's important as individuals and as leaders for us to assess, where do I see myself on this curve? Now, you have some people that will say, well, Tish, you know what? For a particular change I'm thinking about, I didn't experience frustration. I definitely wasn't depressed. I just moved right to integration. And so depending on the type of change it is, you can expedite this through this as quickly as possible. Some people get stalled, and we want to help people move. So I want to draw a different illustration for you. All right, so think of this. So remember that model, how it went. You kind of saw it go the upside down curve. So think of it this way. I can't draw worth a darn, but you can tell me what this is. What is that?
A letter.
Yes! it's a ladder. It's a ladder. Okay. All right, so let's do this side.
It's a really
Okay,
bad construction.
that's the other side, right? And so here is our person. And over here, let's use this as a context of you being the leader.
Okay.
So it's a trapeze thing. So what our goal is to get this person from here to here. That's our goal. It's a change. It's something that they've never experienced. So as leaders on this side of the platform, there are things that we have to do in order to get this person from here to here. And you might have to unmute yourself for this because I'd love to hear your feedback. This person is standing here, so they've walked up the platform and they're in shock. They're like, okay, I cannot even believe that I'm doing this. And then they get over here and they're in denial. But I need you over here. What am I saying to this person as a leader to get them over here?
Jump.
Jump. Just jump. I got your back, right? It's not so bad once you make the decision. And so you're coaching this person. You're telling them, I got resources over here for you. You're going to be successful. This is what I've lined up for you to be successful. I allocated this type of training for you. This is how long the training is going to be. Here are the type of resources you're going to get. This is how we're going to check in and follow up. So we're doing all of this as leaders to inspire this person to make the leap, right? So now they've made the leap. Our work as leaders isn't done because now this person has jumped. And this is a critical point because they're going to be frustrated. They're like, I trusted you and I made the leap. Now the person at this point can either go here or go back to what they're used to. Go back to what used to be. And so at this point, we as leaders still have work to do. That work sounds like, you know what? I really admire the courage you have at making that leap. I know that it's scary for you, but as your leader, I need you to trust me. I need you to know that I've got your back, and at any time, if you got questions, I'm here for you. So this person's like, okay, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. And then they end up here. That's ultimately what we want to see. And when you take a look at the other change model, that's exactly what happens on the emotional responses to change or the change curve. But we have a job as leaders to get our staff here. And so once we get them over here, everybody's excited and we're having a party. But guess what? The work isn't done. It's just beginning. The work isn't getting on the platform. The work is now that you're over here, it's actually getting into the routine and hardwiring the new practices that we have introduced to our staff. The other, I like to call it ending. So this is the ending zone. This is neutral. And this is beginnings. Oh my gosh. This looks awful. And so what happens is you have to begin with end. And some people think, well, gosh, that's backwards, Tish. But the reason why, and this is it's Bridges model. The reason why we start with ending is because in order for us to begin something, we have to end something. So in order for us to achieve those weight loss goals that we have to stop the poor eating. In order for us to adapt this new customer service platform in our organization, we have to stop using the old one. So it starts with ending so that we can then begin anew. I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions on that.
If anyone has a question, just press your space bar and ask away.
Cool. All right. So let us go back here. So that is that screen. Let me give you my PowerPoint again, because I don't think you're seeing it. Okay. So, oh, technology is like really like change, Tish. I'm going to show you what change. Okay. So that's the Kubler and Ross change curve. So here's a thought that I want to share with you guys too. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. And when we think about change, it does start there. It starts with how are we challenging our mindset and our own thought processes about the change? How can I help myself expedite through those emotional responses to change so that I can start to adapt this new normal? And so there are some things as individuals that we can do in order to achieve that. And so our role is, and there's a couple questions that I want us to consider. So if you're going through a change yourself, you're anticipating a change, here are some questions I want you to think about. Transition yourself from helpless to able. Because sometimes when we're in the midst of change, we feel like our hands are tied and that there is nothing we can do about it. And that that the change is just happening to us. And it's circumstances that you just can't get away from. And so the question I want you to consider, if you feel like you're helpless and you're kind of it's at the whim of circumstances, ask yourself this: what choice can I make in this moment to move me towards what I really want? When we feel like there is no hope, just know that there is. And even if the choice that you make to transition from helpless to able is to challenge your mental model around the change, that is a choice. And that's a choice that can move you to action. Because it's heavy when we feel like things are happening to us and we have no control. It's like it sits in the pit of our stomachs. And so I want us to start thinking about, how can I begin to transition and move to action quicker? The other thing I want you to consider is transition from victim to assessing your role. Because sometimes we feel like we're victims of change. And so the question that I want you to ask yourself, if you feel like this is where you're at, what role can I play in the success of this change that I'm pretending not to notice? What am I pretending not to notice? Because sometimes we just want to stay in our stuff. We want to stay in what used to be because that's comfortable for us. And so we make up all these excuses about why I can't transition or why I can't make the change, when we know the change is good for us. Because remember our definition, change is about becoming something different. If we stay the same, we will never grow. And so you want to challenge your mental models around how you're thinking about the change. And if it's uncomfortable, that's where you really want to push yourself to make a different choice. And so what role can you play in the success of this change that you're pretending not to notice is there? The other thing that you want to think about is giving others the benefit of the doubt. If you are in an organization and it seems like change is happening constantly and you just don't know why these folks are making this change, it just doesn't make sense. They're crazy up there. They don't know what we do. It's just, they need to come and walk a mile in my moccasins. Here's the question that I want you to ask. What reasons or challenges are they facing that is necessitating the change? Because there has to be something that is requiring the organization to change. Or there must be something happening that is requiring them to approach you about changing. And so what are those reasons? And if we don't know the answer to that question, then we owe it to ourselves and to that individual to ask. But opposed to assuming that this person is a villain, assume that there's something else that they're facing, tough decisions that they have that's requiring us to move to action. And the last piece in terms of our role is our attitude determines our altitude. If we can't change anything else, That is the one thing that we can change, is our attitude and how we think about the change. And I'm starting with role of the leader, because now we're going to transition into different change models, but I wanted to talk about our role as a leader before we get into those change models. So the important thing here is to manage the cadence of change. Particularly, and I grew up in healthcare, so this is something that happens all the time, where changes are constant. And I have leaders that say, it's never ending. If I introduce one more change to my team, they're just gonna break and they're just gonna walk out the door. And so the challenge that I provide to them is say, okay, so as the leader, you know all the 10 projects you have on the plate, and you know that your team is at breaking point. So it's important to start to manage that cadence of change and negotiate around the change. And it might sound something like, you know what, leader, our team would love to be able to implement this change. Right now, we have 10 other projects that we're focused on, and they're all important. So if you had to prioritize which ones we need to focus on first, what would your choice be? So it's not saying, oh, we can't do that, you out of your mind, there's no way we can do this, but instead we're negotiating. I have 10 things, so you let me know what's most important. Because if we try to do it all, we won't give you our best work. And it's important that we give you our best work. The other thing is, if you have questions, get them answered before you roll out the change to the team. And be honest about what you know and what you don't know, because the worst thing that can happen is you're rolling out this change that has to happen and you're not sold on it. You haven't reconciled it in your brain, and you're standing up there like, you know what, I don't know why we're doing this. I'm frustrated just like you. I know, yep. No. That's the worst thing to do, is to not champion the change. And so if you have your own levels of resistance or your own questions, get that reconciled first before you present it in front of a team. Because if we don't, then we will, the change is doomed to failure. Build a change management strategy, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a moment, so I won't spend much time on that. And be curious. Be patient and be curious. Because sometimes what we think might be resistance may not be. It just may be that someone is along that change continuum somewhere hanging out because they don't know what to expect and they have questions. So before we assume that it's resistance, first be curious about, I wonder if it's questions that they have. And who is resisting? Is it myself? Is it management? Is it employees? Is it my clients or my customers? And then what is it are they resisting? Is it the new culture? Is it tools? Is it knowledge? Is this a planned or an unplanned change? So you want to start to tease things apart when you're working with people that may have questions. And that's why I like to lead with, instead of assuming that they're resisting, ask, they may have more questions. And that's how you want to think about that. And check yourself before you wreck yourself. That kind of goes up to bullet number 2. You have to be in a good space of mind if you want to be a leader. Leading change, it just makes your job a whole lot easier if you can get yourself in check first. And then recognize where your team is on the change curve, and then you want to act accordingly. Let me see what time. So a couple more minutes. So this is a model that is really, really practical, that I give to leaders all the time. And it encompasses both the personal needs that we talked about, as well as the practical needs in order to get the change done. So I'll acclimate you to what this is. So you can utilize this for whatever change you're implementing. It could be personal, it could be professional, but it just gives you a really good framework in order to talk about and roll out the change. And the idea is that you complete this before you roll out the change, and it makes sure that you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. So the first part, which is professional needs, it's how can I maintain this person's self-esteem? Meaning, how can I help them understand that they will be successful, so you express your confidence in them? You know, this is a new change, but I know that you are fully capable to do this new change. I just need you to communicate to me what your needs are as you go through it, and I'm happy to accommodate it. So express confidence in them. Also express empathy. Sometimes when people are going through a tough time at work, whether they've seen their colleagues laid off, they're concerned about themselves, recognize that you see that. Recognize the fact that you know this is not easy. Because sometimes what people want to know is that you see them as human. And what people want to know is that you get it and that you understand. This also helps them to see you as human. Even when we talk to our children about different changes that they have to go through, how can we express empathy to them to say, you know what, sweetie, I get where you're at. I know that this is tough, but just know I'm here to support you through this change. And the best thing to do as well is involve them in the solution. So seek their concerns, seek their resistance, unleash questions, ask for them to be a part of the solution wherever it makes sense. The share, I say share, but use your discernment, because sometimes as leaders, we share too much and our staff are then consoling us because we're sitting there crying and boo-hooing because we don't want to do this change, and our staff are looking at us like, oh boy. So be careful about how much you disclose about your feelings and how much you share, but it's important that you say, you know what, I understand where you're at. I had to, you know, when this change was first introduced to me, there are several things I had to do to get comfortable with it, and I'm happy to support you in that. So that would be the appropriate level of sharing. And then the last one is support. What kind of support are you going to provide for them? If you can do these things, then it helps people to expedite through that change curve much faster. Now, some people will need all 5. Some people will need just 2. Not everyone needs all of them. This is my favorite section, but it's about when you have a change, you know, sitting down with people who are having a difficult time, have them list out what can we not control, work that column first. And then once you talk about what you can't control, cross it off and say, since we cannot control these elements, let's not invest any more time and energy in this column of what we can't control. Cross it off. Then you spend time in the control and the influence column. Ooh. And then this next section just talks about, and it gives you statements. And I can provide this for you guys if you want it. It talks about, you know, what will you say about the change? How will you clarify these are the phases? How will you develop or implement the change? What agreements are you making with your team, and closing out that conversation? So a very helpful tool if you guys are interested in that. Just drop a note in the Dropbox or the chat if you're interested in me sending this out to you. Couple of other changes, but I'll give you these slides too, so that you can have them. But that model is a very practical model. The other 2 that's here is, one is called appreciative inquiry, which really takes a positive look at your new normal and implementing change. And so it goes through these 5 different phases, defining what it is, what is discovery, and what gives life, so showing appreciation, envisioning the results, and so it's people seeing the possibilities, designing what it looks like, and then sustaining the change. So this is a nice model too that you can consider for change if you want to keep people in a very positive space. And there's a book out there that's really simple, and the name of it is at the bottom, but you'll get the slides too. It's called Appreciative Inquiry 90-Minute Guide. And then the other one is just a traditional change model by Kotter, 8-step model that's very comprehensive. So I want to leave you with this. Most people use their energy attempting to rearrange circumstances that trigger painful emotions. Changing external circumstances will not change your rigid patterns of emotional responses. That requires looking at patterns themselves. And so as you think about change, think about where you or your team, your family might be in that change continuum, and start to make decisions around what you can do to get from one platform of the trapeze to the other as quickly and as easily and unharmed as you possibly can. So that is my time. I will pass it over to my awesome colleague, Holly, who's going to take you through what is our presence when we're navigating times of change.
You, Tish. Appreciate it. Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. And what a dialogue today when we talk about change. And then what happens when we have to be the messenger? A lot of times our teams are truly looking at us going, what exactly is happening? Most of the time, all the time, our leaders in our organizations are the ones that indeed are providing that message and explaining the why and the reasoning behind it. So today I'm going to give you tools on not only how to present to your teams, but I'm going to give a little bit of an overview if you're doing that virtually for your teams as well. Because when we are stuck in a pandemic and working out of our homes, being able to find confidence in the resources and the tools that we are using for our communication is absolutely key. It's necessary and we need it. So let's run right into it. Love this quote from Nat Turner, and it is truth. Good communication is the bridge between clarity or confusion. And when we look at that, it's not only from verbal communication, but it's looking at the body language and the messages that can be misconstrued. It's looking at text messages. It's looking at the tones that we might put into an email. So when we look at our communication styles and the way that we do communicate, we do want to make certain that we're using good communication and making certain that our body language, our tone and everything and our words are congruent. When they are incongruent, it means that they're not matching. So for those of us who have spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends and siblings, and if you've ever had discourse where you've said, are you doing okay? Is everything fine? And they go, everything is fine. Obviously, our words at that moment are incongruent and we're not matching. So Albert Mehrabian was awesome scientist. And what he found is that there are three components of our communication: our body language, our tone, and the words that we speak. And what's really cool about Albert is that he found that really and truthfully, the words that we speak are only 7%. The words that we use have very minimal impact on how we actually deliver and communicate. 55% is our body language, 38% are the tones that we use when we communicate, and then the words. So our body language and the tone and the speed that we use all impacts how we communicate when we're interacting with others. So prime example, and this is the interactive part. So whether you're on camera or not, in your homes, at your home office or wherever, I want you to take your index finger to your thumb, and I'd like for you to, put them together. And I'd like for you to go forward in a clockward motion. And I want you to go forward in another clockward motion. Forward once again, and then I'll go ahead and put it on your cheek. I said the cheek. So it just goes to show it's the Simon Says game. Play it with your family and friends. You have a new parlor trick for the evening. But our body language and the tones that we use impact the way that we communicate and make the absolute difference. So be cognizant, and we're going to be talking a little bit about when we are presenting, how our body language and how we use our hands can make an impact on that messaging that we use. I'm big on facial expression. So when I am presenting, I'm making certain that my eyes, my eyebrows, and particularly when I'm virtual, that I'm using some bigger motions when I am communicating and leading a discussion, because I want people to be able to feel the energy that I'm providing to a group, because it is key for us to remain engaged and to make certain that we are keeping the engagement and the room can feel. My goal as a keynote speaker and a presenter is to make every single presentation feel like it is on a roller coaster ride. My goal is edutainment, if you will. I want to entertain you while I educate, and I always want to keep all of my participants on the edge of the seat. Now, sometimes we don't get to be that entertainer if we are delivering that very critical message of change. So we have to know when it is appropriate and when it is necessary. And when we talk about that congruency with our body language, we also want to make certain that our facial emotions and our facial features are matching the message that we give. I find it hysterical when I watch the news and people are so happy to be on film from a film crew, and you'll hear them being like, oh man, the heat's just terrible. It's just terrible. Can't even bear it. And they've got this big, huge smile on their face. So if we do have challenges presenting in front of rooms and that nervous element is there, to practice our facial expressions, the sternness to it, practicing the delivery, practicing the tone, because all of that is going to impact the message that we deliver, and that's really going to sing it home to the audience and to the participants that we're communicating to. That being said, anytime that we communicate, we have the opportunity to influence and inspire. I put that as a quote for me. I don't know who it's from. It could be unknown, but I'm taking credit for it today. We communicate to colleagues, to friends, to family members, to our teams. Maybe we're not in that leadership role. It's looking at how we can communicate to influence and to inspire action and to possibly have people think differently. And that's my goal when I communicate. So for today, we'll tap into a few of the presentation elements, but I do want to focus on the Zoom and the Teams element, because we are virtual, and being able and knowing how to operate and to follow some of the etiquette within that, I think is very beneficial for us to do. So there is etiquette. Obviously, if you are the host of a meeting, you've probably muted everyone. Being and remaining on mute is key so that we're not disrupted, or if there is an echoing. Some individuals have challenges with their not having a camera available for them. Your camera is the little green light that you see right there on your desktops or your computers. I have actually communicated with teams that they can see my screen when I screen share, but I'm not able to see their video. So they don't have a two-way camera. It's just a presentation element. So, but being able to stare right at that green light, it makes it feel as if you're doing that eye contact with the individuals that you're talking to, rather than looking down and doing. Being able also familiarity just with your presentations. Two main etiquettes. One, if you're putting a quote in a presentation, and I'll rephrase this and repeat it. If you're putting a quote in a presentation, memorize it, know it here, know it here. There is nothing more bumbling than to look at a quote and to say, good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. The message is gone, because what people are seeing is that we're referencing notes and we're not familiar. So be the expert when you're communicating and let the notes go. Don't worry about the PowerPoint. Your message is you. You are the individual presenting, and that's why people came, because they want to see you. So make certain that, don't worry if you're off on the PowerPoint, make certain that message is you and that you're talking to it. Your PowerPoint is a background feature. It's a background noise. Hopefully it will accent the message that you're presenting. But please, please, please be the message and be able to divert if so needed from your presentation. Looking down at notes, always look at that screen. Keep it engaged. Keep the eye contact going. When we look at Teams and when we look at Zoom, I know the Chamber has done many Zoom communications, and there are some organizations that prefer Teams. Teams is a Microsoft tool, and this is a screenshot of a Teams meeting. And as you can see, it looks very similar as if you were on a Zoom meeting, very similar platforms. Teams is through Microsoft, and Teams has more of a security-based element to it. So you might have heard people doing Zoom crashing, where they can bust into a meeting if it's not password protected. Teams is always going to be just for those who have a Microsoft account and or linking in through the internet. It's very, very secure. So what you can see there is the camera tells if you want to use the camera or not the camera, your microphone, the arrow with the box down is the same element as the screen share that you would find within Zoom, and then your dots. Over to the left side where you see the screenshot for activity and chat and Teams, it's because Teams has a lot more different tools that we can use, including whiteboards and sharing Google Documents right within it, because all of their systems integrate within each other. So depending on what you use, however you want to use, I just wanted to provide a screenshot as to what a Teams session would look like. And unfortunately, it was a very small meeting with a team, so I wasn't able to get like massive screenshots with videos for other individuals. So this is my samples just to show you what a Teams element looks like. If I go and exit out of my screen, I wanted just to go into, you can see my mouse is moving on the screen now. We are on the Zoom controls. If you're not familiar with your mute button, here's your mute button. It's your friend. Use your friend, use your mute button. Always use your mute button. If you're the host of a Zoom meeting, when you schedule the meeting, you can place parameters if you want everyone to be muted at the top of the meeting, or if you want their microphones or their videos to be shown. Always a proponent to see faces. We want to see faces. We want to see reactions from individuals when we're communicating, to see how they are taking the message when we're delivering it to them. Within that, you have the stop video feature, and that also has an arrow that will tell you about choosing your virtual backgrounds. The one that you see behind me is one that I created as a video. It shifts colors a bit, and I received that from Canva and then uploaded it to my Zoom account. So if you're wanting to learn how to do any other features with Zoom and backgrounds, I'm happy to facilitate that conversation at a later time. And then of course you have, you can show all the participants that are popping up. And then of course your fabulous chat feature is going to show who is communicating to you. Are you getting feedback? Are you taking polls? So the Zoom and the Teams are truly just two different resources that you can use. If you're doing one-on-one meetings, Facebook Messenger has a live video feed that you're also able to utilize. And then you also have, if you have an iPhone, you can of course do FaceTime if you want to do that. Those are just going to be one-on-one discussions versus your group meetings. Teams, if you have Teams, because it's going to be an office base with the Office subscription and an admin element to it, would be unlimited participants to that meeting, versus Zoom is going to have different tiers based off of your business elements and your business needs as to how many people you can have present in a meeting. If you have a personal Zoom account, your meetings can only last 45 minutes or 40 minutes before they cut you off if you have more than 3 participants. So most individuals are going to upgrade to a business account, or they're going to, upgrade to a plus account so that you can have upwards of 100 or even greater for your participant level within your Zoom. Most recently, I put together some tips and pointers on LinkedIn. So I'm going to encourage you after today, and I'm constantly putting these out there. I'm starting vlogging where I'm giving people some tips and pointers on presentation styles. But these were my most recent presentation tips and pointers to find on Zoom and Teams. And I've had some more that have come to light. I'm big on the straw lately. I like to drink from my beverage with the straw. And that's basically because, and I've seen this on Zoom meetings, we're dramatizing our ideas here today. Throwing your head back as you drink from a jug is not very attractive. So maybe consider buying a package of straws and sipping from your large water jugs, or getting one that has a straw. It's much more appealing. Refrain from eating, of course. If you think that you're going to sneeze, or you have to cough or constantly clear your throat, that's again where your mute button becomes your friend, and making certain that you're looking at that camera. For presentation tips, refrain from phrases such as, what I wanted to begin with today was, or the introduction element as to one of the main things that I wanted to start with today. Just dive in, tell us your story, start with the story, get us engaged, start with high energy and keep it rolling, so that again, our participants are on that roller coaster ride with us and they don't know where that twirl is going to come from, so that they remain engaged with us as they go. We all know that there's going to be technical difficulty during some type of a presentation. Sometimes our internet may be spotty. So I have a jetpack as a backup. This morning, our internet went down in our house. And thank goodness I had my jetpack charged up so that I was able to instantly switch over to it. So summer was nearly ruined. Our 8-year-old truly was like, the internet's down, what do we do? It was very funny. But looking at different ways with an internet, when we do a presentation, if there's a way to keep it interactive and ask questions, do so. Get them started with an Albert Moravian activity at the beginning. Show a video. Do a whiteboard where you're building ladders. Do something where it's going to be interactive. And if it is a live session, if we are doing a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, I challenge you that when you do ask a question, to pause. And pause double time so that individuals can try to find that chat resource and that they can respond to you. Because if individuals are not familiar with where the mute button is located or where that chat feature is, are they responding to the chat individually? Are they responding to the chat to everyone? Be patient and give time for that. We as individuals do not care for silent time. We like to fill it. So as a presenter, a great way to truly take control of a room and to have people embrace that element for you is to pause and embrace the silence and let those individuals lean in a little bit more so that they can pay attention to you as they go. If you follow me on social media, you're going to see a lot more of the Zoom tips and pointers. And again, that facial congruency is huge if you're talking about that change element. I echo Tish 100% that we never want to come across as the messenger telling you, well, I've got to give this today because this is what I was told to do. Just diving into it and refraining. We lose our influence and we lose our messaging when we put our caveats on it. So find that eloquence and be yourself. We don't have to talk in Shakespearean prose to make certain the room is paying attention to us. We can simply be ourselves. Find your own words. There was a colleague that I used to MC with for large events, and my goodness, his vocabulary. And you could taste the descriptions of the flavorings and the words that he would use when he would present. And I was just in awe. I was like, wow. But find yourself. So rather than impersonate someone else, truly find a way for you to be you and to find comfort in your own messaging and your own style, because that's what people like. They want to see you. Keep following me on social media. I love putting these tips out here. I love presentation coaching. I love to help people find strength and confidence in their messaging, whether it be for change or trying to motivate staff or inspiring thought. So reach out if you have questions, and I open it up. If anyone has a question for myself or for Tish at this point, please feel free, pop over into the chat. And I think we have just a few moments left where we can say, hey, we can take some questions from everybody. Thank you, Rick. I saw that on the chat. My Shakespearean prose. During the pandemic, I have completed all 6 seasons of Downton Abbey. So on occasion, I can break into the English brogue very, very easily.
I can't make it through 1, let alone 6. So
oh,
God
but
bless you.
It's a great show. It's a great show, my lord. Fantastic. Questions on presentations or change that anyone would like to put into the chat?
Surely someone has a question. So if you haven't unmuted, just push the space bar and ask away. So the chat says they want your contact information because they want to reach out to you.
Fantastic. I will put that in there right now. Perfection. That is email and phone. And of course, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn, starting lots more vlogs. It's the number one fear in the world is public speaking. And that was a Seinfeld episode. They talk about people would rather be, you know, in the casket than giving a eulogy at a funeral. And it truly is just finding a confidence in yourself. Most of the ums and uhs that I hear from people when they communicate into a large group are simply because they're in here. You're in your own head. And when we can communicate with passion, and when we start talking about a topic that we have passion about and we're inspired by it and we want other people to become infected with how much we love to talk about it, whether it be dogs or our kids or our job or our work or our vacations, those and uhs go away. So it's finding that confidence and putting ourselves in that mindset when we do have to do that presentation, whether it is change from a pandemic and a culture change or a shift that's taking place within our organization, or standing up in front of a room of people or giving a toast at a wedding. Being able to communicate and inspire is absolutely key. And once you have that moment, once you can experience that moment, the world opens up and you think truly to yourself, what next? What next? Who else can I inspire? How else can I motivate and change thought? And that's what I hope that I can provide as a gift to individuals, is that they have that confidence when they're communicating.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think for me, it's letting go of the outcome. And if I could just trust my process and let go of the outcome, then I am much stronger with facilitating, because the outcome comes from the people in the room. They own that. I own the process by which they can come about the outcome. So that's been helpful for me. Let the rest go. Just do what I need to do, my preparation, my process, and then the rest will fall in order.
Absolutely.
I know we're at time, and a few folks are starting to drop off, but Lindsay, do we have a few more minutes if people want to chat with Holly and
Absolutely.
Tish?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you guys for joining.
Yeah. Absolutely. Did I talk about resting face for Zooms and Teams? Be cognizant, because I will tell you, if we go into gallery view and you can see everyone's face, some individuals are very opaque in their reactions to others. So there's not a poker face whatsoever. We may hear something in a dinner conversation or just through dialogue, and literally our face goes, I mean, our reaction is huge. Or if we disagree with what someone's saying or what a presenter is saying, sometimes we can be like this. Be cognizant of your resting face, because on a Zoom, remember, some people might be doing some screenshots for social media saying, look, everybody, I joined this happy hour, or I did this or that. So finding a soft resting face where you kind of like tilt your head and go, I mean, we don't want it to be scary. It doesn't need to be a scary doll, but find a resting face that's comfortable, that says that you're open. So I like to, you know, tilt my chin a bit and then just lean forward and then use my eyebrows throughout and then nodding. But if you're totally against whatever they're saying, you would refrain from that. So find the resting face, because you'll find some people are like,
or turn off your camera.
Right?
Yeah, that would too.
And brush your teeth. Although people can't smell your breath, it just makes you feel better about you too. Awesome. I look forward to hearing from people. And Tish, you're amazing. I can listen to you all day long talking about change. You are just a Wonder Woman of influence when it comes to change. I first heard you at Women in Business last year, and it's always, always amazing to present with you and collaborate with you. So thank you for today.
I feel the same way. You know, I'm a fan, Holly.
All right.
Great.
Reach out, and thank you. It was recorded, so we'll be able to get recordings of it then. Yay.
Yep. Perfect.
Enjoy your week, everybody.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.